In today's video, I'll show you how to set up a three-point lighting system in Blender. But before we dive in, let me quickly explain what the three-point lighting system is all about. It's a traditional technique where you use three different light sources positioned in specific ways to illuminate your subject in a scene. You've got the key light, which is the main light source, the fill light to soften the shadows, and the backlight to create some depth and separation. Now that you've got a little understanding of what three-point light is, let's start this tutorial. I've already set up a simple scene in Blender with a character I downloaded from sketchfab. I rigged and posed the character as I wanted. I also set up the camera and added a plane acting as the floor. Then I split the viewport into two parts. Before adding the lights, the first thing you should do is turn on the render preview up here. Then go to the Render Properties tab and select EEVEE as our render engine. Leave the sampling as it is. Next, let's go to Ambient Occlusion and turn it on. You'll see it adds some subtle shadows to our scene, giving it a more realistic look. Now, let's use Bloom to create a glowing effect. Also, go to Screen Space Reflections and turn it on. As for Motion Blur, if your scene has animation, you can turn it on. But if not, there's no need. Finally, let's go to Volumetrics, open it, and only turn on volumetric shadows. Then close it. Now, go to Shadows and enable High Bit Depth. You can also adjust the pixel cube shadow resolution, but for now, let's leave it at 512 pixels. So, that's all for the EEVEE render settings. Before we add lighting, let's go to the world settings. We want the 3D world to be dark. So, go to the world properties, click on Color, and set it to black. Just like that. All right, now we can add the lighting. To add lighting, I usually create a new collection for it. Add a new collection by clicking here and rename it whatever you like. For this tutorial, I'll name it Light. All the lighting we add will go into this collection. Now let's start with the first light, also known as the key light or main light. To add a light, simply press Shift-A and then go to Light. In Blender, you have four types of lights: point light, sunlight, spotlight, and area light. Each has a different function, but their settings are similar. For this tutorial, I'll use an area light. Now that we have the area light, let's first move it up. If you can't see the gizmo, go to the Tools panel by pressing T. Now click on the transform icon with four arrows. You can move, rotate, and scale the light using these icons. You can also adjust the power of the light by increasing or decreasing its value. Let's set it to 200 for now. Now open the shadow settings and turn on Contact Shadow. You can change the color of the light if you like, but for now I'll keep it white. To soften the shadows, I'll scale up the light. You see, when the light is smaller, the shadows are harsher, but when it's larger, the shadows become softer. In Blender, the size of the light affects the shadow quality. So, I'll scale up the light to get a softer shadow. Position the key light to the side of your subject. It doesn't matter whether it's on the left or right, just as long as it's on the side. Then rotate it along the Y-axis and bring it a little downward and move it forward a bit to achieve the desired angle. All right, we have the key light set up. If you feel there's too much reflection, you can move it further away from the scene. I like to position it at the edge of the frame. Now that's our key light. If it seems too dark, just increase the power value. Remember, we want to avoid placing it directly in front of the subject to avoid a flat look and lack of shadows. By placing it to the side, we achieve a more dramatic effect with visible shadows. Next, let's add our second light, the backlight or rim light. I'll duplicate the key light since I want similar settings for this light. To duplicate, simply press Shift-D. Now, you can move the duplicated light to the back of your subject. I'll position it outside the frame and a bit higher. The rim light's purpose is to separate the subject from the background. Now, increase the power a bit to make it more pronounced. Remember, you can adjust the placement and angle of the backlight to suit your scene. Lastly, let's create the fill light. Again, I'll duplicate the key light using Shift-D. This time, I'll move it to the opposite side of the scene where it appears darker. The fill light will fill in the shadows created by the key light. but it should be less intense than the main light. So reduce its power value to achieve a softer effect. This way, it brightens the dark areas without overpowering the main light's shadows. There you go. With these 3 lights in place, you've set up a basic 3-point lighting system. Of course, you can experiment with different settings and positions to achieve the desired mood and atmosphere for your scene. To enhance the scene's overall look, I'll add a volumetric effect. It's easy to do in Blender. Simply press Shift-A and add a cube to cover the entire scene. For ease of working in the viewport, select the cube, go to Object Properties, and under Viewport Display, choose Wire as the display mode. Now you can see the whole scene again. To create the foggy effect, we need to apply a volumetric material to the cube. Select the cube, go to the shader editor, and click the New button to create a new material. Name the material as you like. Now delete the existing principled BSDF shader, search for principled volume, and connect the volume output to the material output node. Decrease the density value to around 0.001. You'll immediately notice the difference with and without volumetrics. If you want to make the fog thicker, simply adjust the density value accordingly. And that's it. Now you have a good understanding of 3-point lighting, and you can apply it to any scene, whether it's for product shots or studio shoots. Remember, this is just the basic principle, and you can get creative and experiment with lighting setups to suit your specific needs. I hope you learned something from this tutorial, and thanks for watching till the end. I've been quite busy lately, but I managed to record this short tutorial. Practice using these techniques, and you'll become more confident with lighting. That's all from me. Goodbye.